Pro Evolution Soccer would be the first game in the popular series to actually go by the new name Pro Evo. That would originally be seen as International Superstar Soccer and also World Soccer Winning 11 in Japan. So this would be the first in a series of games that would go well into the next generation of consoles and beyond. That would later be changed with eFootball now in only recent years by Konami, and it takes all of the popular elements seen in the original ISS Pro game seen on the PlayStation. And this version of the game, it originally was available in 2001 and it later got a release in early 2002 on the original PlayStation. And it takes many elements from the previous games, and even with the PlayStation 1 version took elements from the ISS Pro Evolution series, which is technically the same game, just a more upgraded version. So this would have carried on that tradition. And while this game may have changed its name, it did offer some new elements but kind of kept a lot of the same variations and features intact from the popularity of the original games in the series. But it still wouldn't stop games in the series from getting good ratings overall, and it managed to do quite well in sales for Konami on the PlayStation 2 specifically, and the PlayStation 1 would sell quite well too, because during the days of when this game was released, not everybody had a PlayStation 2, as a lot of people were still playing the PS1, so there was versions of the Pro Evolution Soccer game still being released for the PlayStation. And even with the release later of Pro Evolution Soccer 2, which would be the final game in the series to be released on the original PlayStation. So with the PlayStation 2 version growing in popularity, the PS1 version would still have its own unique fan base that would still manage to go on and sell quite a number of copies, and considering its lengthy history would still provide a lot of good playable features for fans of the series. And the graphics themselves wouldn't have changed all that much from the likes of even ISS Pro 98. If you look back at it, the graphics are very, very similar from ISS Pro 98 to ISS Pro Evolution 1 and 2, and then even with Pro Evolution 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 1. They all looked and played quite similar, but the play dynamics had gradually changed with each iteration of the game, whereas they were trying to focus more on simulation style football to try and make it a bit more realistic. Because at the time, even though FIFA was the dominant series in football games for consoles, but it was the Pro Evolution or ISS Pro series that would actually be the better simulation focused game in all respects. But the only real issue was the fact is that not all of the games had access to all of the licensed teams and players, whereas FIFA had all of that. So that's where people would have tended to focus more and buy more of the FIFA games instead. But that doesn't take away from the popularity of the Pro Evolution series, as they are without a doubt some of the greatest, if not the greatest, soccer games of all time that presented many fun moments for football fans across the world. Even for myself personally, like, I do love the FIFA games, but if I was to pick between the two, personally I would have always picked the ISS Pro games, and the reason being is because I was just able to adapt to them a lot more. The controls and the way the game plays was definitely for me a lot easier to pick up and play, even though in general it's actually a hard game for most players to get used to. But I just found I was able to pick it up and play it a lot easier compared to I was with the FIFA games. But in saying that, ISS Pro 98 would be my favourite soccer game of all time, and the later games, although while fantastic games in their own right, but because they were becoming more realistic in terms of the controls, they were harder to pick up and play because of the realistic elements, so most beginners would struggle to get used to these games if just starting out. So it's one of those series of games, and I found the same with the PlayStation 2 version, because originally I had the PlayStation 2 version because it was one of the first few games I'd ever got when I bought my PS2 back in 2001, because I'd originally bought my PS2 just to get access to Grand Theft Auto 3, but then as time went on I realised that I can't always play Grand Theft Auto and I needed to buy other games and to get more involved with them. And the second game I actually bought for my PS2 was, funnily enough, Pro Evolution Soccer 1, and I played that a ton. And for me, the best fun I had with all of the soccer games that we played over the years was always playing it multiplayer with your mates, playing like either one-on-one exhibitions or playing in friendlies. Or what we used to do is we would play like a tournament where the winner plays on, and you would keep playing until you got bet, pretty much. But the thing is with the ISS Pro games, unlike the FIFA games, if we were playing FIFA, there'd always be one person that was always just way better at the FIFA games, and you would never win a game if you were lucky. But with the ISS Pro games, because we were all kind of on the same level, you'd win one or two, but then you'd always be guaranteed to lose one, and then another person would lose one, and then you'd be back going going over the same thing again. So you were always kind of on the same level, but it was so much fun. But I always found with these games, I was always the main culprit, because my mates and even my brothers would have hated playing against me, because I always had a habit of scoring in injury time. I was always considered very, very lucky. My mates hated playing against me because I would always score a goal in injury time. I'd either equalise or I'd end up scoring a winning goal in injury time that would need to go on to either extra time or even the penalties, where I would go on and win. So it was always a really fun kind of like time. Well, it was fun for me, but not so much for everybody else. But that was just the reality of it. And it was the same even with Pro Evolution Soccer on the PS2. I had the same kind of thing where that would happen a lot as well. And it wasn't really until Pro Evolution Soccer 2 on the PlayStation 2 I would win games a lot over that time, but then gradually I started losing games. So it took a while for eventually for my mates to really start getting their own back on me, but it was fun. When I think back, it was fun. It was a really good laugh. But I just love these type of soccer games, and they go down in history as some of the best soccer games ever made. And the same on the PlayStation 1. They're without a doubt some of the best soccer games ever, and I highly recommend you check them out. Regardless of which version you prefer the most, you should definitely give them all a go in all regards. And I would love to know your thoughts on Pro Evolution Soccer for the PlayStation, if you have played it yourself, and if so, what do you think of the series overall? Be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated with future videos. And if you would like to see more content around other types of soccer games also released on the PlayStation, then you can check out this playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.
So Terry, what did you think of the game? It was an extremely one-sided match, but the game itself had some good moments.